It is 4 a.m. The world is asleep, but you are not. You are staring at a glowing rectangle bathed in blue light, watching pixels tick upward and downward in a chaotic, rhythmic dance. Your heart rate is slightly elevated, resting at perhaps 85 beats per minute. You tell yourself this is dedication. You tell yourself this is what alpha looks like. You believe that by staring harder, analyzing deeper, and consuming more data, you are exerting control over an entity that is, by definition, uncontrollable. Let's dismantle that lie immediately. You are not analyzing. You are paying a tax, a hidden biological tax that depletes your bank account long before you ever click, with a fundamental misunderstanding of physics. In the physical world, the world where you build houses or dig ditches, effort correlates with output. If you dig for 10 hours, you have a bigger hole than if you dig for 2. It is a linear equation. But the market is a nonlinear environment. In this domain, effort does not equal profit. In fact, beyond a certain threshold of preparation, effort correlates with loss. We need to talk about your brain. Not the mindset fluff you read on Instagram, but the structural integrity of your decision-making hardware. Imagine your capacity for discipline not as a character trait, but as a finite energy source. Let's call this your cognitive battery. Every morning, you wake up with a full charge. This energy is currency. It is the only currency that matters. You think you trade with dollars or euros? You trade with decision capital. Here is where the energy tax destroys you. Every time you toggle between time frames looking for a confirmation that isn't there, you pay a tax. Every time you check your P&L on a trade that is still running, you pay a tax. Every time you scroll through Twitter seeking validation for a bias you already hold, you pay a heavy tax. You are suffering from decision fatigue before the opening bell even rings. You are treating your focus like it is an infinite resource. It is a fragile, depreciating asset. By the time the critical moment arrives, the moment that demands execution, precision, and stoicism, you are logically bankrupt. Your battery is empty. You are trading on fumes, and a brain running on fumes reverts to its factory settings: fear, greed, and the desperate need for immediate dopamine. Let's call him David. David is intelligent. He has an engineering degree. He understands probability and theory. David sits at his desk at 7 a.m. He has 3 monitors. This is his command center, but notice his internal state. He is anxious. He feels the need to do something. He looks at the charts. Not quite his setup, but it's close. His shell, that fragile ego we all carry, whispers to him. It says, "You have been sitting here for an hour. If you don't take a trade, you aren't working. If you aren't working, you aren't a trader." It cannot withstand the pressure of boredom. It demands action to validate its own existence. So, David begins to negotiate. He drops down to the 1-minute time frame. He distorts the reality of the market to fit the narrative of his desire. He is paying the energy tax with every click, burning through his glucose reserves. He takes the trade. Immediately, the physiology shifts. His vision literally narrows. A biological response. He is no longer an architect of probability. He is a prey animal cornered by a predator. The trade moves against him by 5 ticks. Now look at the energy tax again. The decision to hold a losing trade requires significantly more cognitive energy than the decision to enter it. He is now in a deficit. That visual input triggers the pain centers of the brain. The anterior insula, the same region that lights up when you break a bone or touch a hot stove. David is not managing risk anymore. He is managing pain. He moves his stop-loss. He rationalizes it. It's just volatility, he says. It's just noise. It is not noise. It is the market asking him a question. He is too depleted to answer. To admit he is wrong would be to crack the shell, and his intelligence were misapplied. The ego refuses to break. So instead of taking a small, calculated loss, a molting of the shell to allow for growth, now the outcome is irrelevant. Even if the market turns around and David makes money on this trade, he is lost. In fact, winning this trade is the worst thing. That reinforces a neural pathway that equates bad process with reward. It creates a dopamine loop that is harder to break than a heroin addiction. He has taught his brain that the energy tax is optional, that discipline is flexible, that he can outsmart the math. He has simply dug a deeper hole in the foundation of his psychological architecture. The reality of professional trading is incredibly boring. If you are excited, you are gambling. If your heart is racing, you are over-leveraged. If you feel like a warrior going into battle, you have already lost the war. The professional views the market through the lens of variance. They understand that the outcome of any single trade is random, totally random. It is a coin flip weighted slightly in their favor. Therefore, the result of the trade does not matter. The only thing that matters is the execution of the system. But you are addicted to the illusion of action. You believe that clicking buttons generates wealth. You are like a man shaking a slot machine thinking the force of your shake influences the tumblers. You are spending your precious psychological capital on. You are exhausted, resentful, and confused. You wonder why you can follow your rules on a demo account but fall apart when real capital is on the line. It is because you have not accounted for the drag. You have not accounted for the energy tax. You are trying to run a marathon while bleeding from 1,000 small cuts. The market is an environment of unlimited freedom. There is no boss to tell you when to stop. There is no HR department to manage your stress. There is only you in the mirror, and right now the reflection in that mirror is a frantic, depleted amateur trying to force his will upon a chaotic universe. You must realize that doing nothing is an active, aggressive trading decision. It is the preservation of capital, both financial and psychological. Every time you choose not to take a subpar trade, you are compounding your energy. You are saving that battery charge for the moment when the odds are so heavily stacked in your favor that execution becomes effortless. You are currently trapped in a loop of high effort. You are feeding the machine with your anxiety. You are polishing a brittle shell that needs to be shattered. To break this cycle, we have to strip you down. We have to look at the biology of your performance. We have to stop looking at the charts and start looking at the animals staring at them. We have to reboot the system. And that starts with the hardware. You are trying to run high-frequency trading algorithms on a computer from 1995. That is the current state of your existence. You obsess over the software, the strategies, the indicators, the macroeconomic theories. But you completely neglect the hardware, the wetware, the biological machinery that actually processes the risk. You believe that psychology is a mental game. You think it is about willpower. You think if you just scream affirmations in the mirror or visualize a Ferrari, the market will bend to your desire. Real trading psychology is physiology. It is cortisol management. It is the specific architectural alignment of your circadian rhythm. If your hardware is overheating, the software will crash. It doesn't matter how good your strategy is. A Ferrari engine in a rusted chassis will tear the car apart. Welcome to the Japanese secret. It is not a candlestick pattern. It is not an Ichimoku cloud. It is a philosophy of biological sovereignty derived from the discipline of stillness. It is the understanding that before you interact with the external chaos of the market, you must establish internal order. Most of you wake up and immediately reach for your phone. Your eyes are barely open, and within 3 seconds of consciousness, you flood your brain with external data. Twitter, Discord, the overnight moves in Asia. Do you understand what you have just done? You have initiated your operating system in reactive mode. You have bypassed the prefrontal cortex, the logical executive center of your brain, and hotwired your connection directly to the amygdala. You have surrendered your authority. You are now a slave to other people's anxiety. You have paid a massive energy tax before your feet, the professional trader, the architect, until the biological boot sequence is complete. This sequence is non-negotiable. It begins with light. The human brain is not designed to stare at screens, and it is designed to regulate alertness based on the position of the sun. When you wake up and stay in the dark, your body continues to produce melatonin. You are trying to make split-second financial decisions while chemically sedated. The first trade of the day is not a buy order. It is the negotiation between your retina and the sky. You need photons hitting the optic nerve to trigger the release of cortisol, the healthy kind, the get up and hunt kind, and to start the timer for your sleep drive later that night. If you are trading without this alignment, you are fighting your own biology. You are trading with a handicap. Next, we enter the laboratory. The laboratory is sterile. In the laboratory, we treat the body as an instrument of precision. Most of you run on caffeine and sugar. You spike your insulin, crash your glucose, and then wonder why you impulsively shorted the top of a strong trend. That wasn't a strategy error. That was hypoglycemia. That was your brain screaming for fuel and mistaking the buy button for a food source. The Japanese secret is the preservation of the zero state. The zero state is a neurological baseline where you are neither excited nor fearful. It is the state of a sniper waiting for a target. The sniper does not hate the target. He does not love the target. He simply observes the wind, the distance, and the variable. To achieve the zero state, you must master the hardest skill in trading. This is where the shell cracks. Your ego, the shell, hates stillness. The shell screams, "We are missing the move?" You are not missing anything. The market will be there tomorrow. It will be there in 10 years. It will be there long after you have blown your account and returned to your cubicle. The ability to sit at your desk fully prepped, fully awake, and do nothing because the setup is not perfect, that is the ultimate display of strength. It is physically painful for you, isn't it? The dopamine receptors are starved. They want the uncertainty. This brings us to the concept of variance tolerance. Your biological hardware is evolved to seek patterns in the wild. If you hear a rustle in the grass, it is better to run and be wrong than to stay and be eaten. That is a survival mechanism. In the market, that same mechanism is a death sentence. When you see a red candle, your lizard brain screams predator. It floods your system with adrenaline. You exit the trade early. You take the loss to stop the pain. You survive the predator, but there was no predator. There was just variance. There was just the random ebb and flow of liquidity. By reacting to the biological signal of fear, you destroyed your mathematical edge. You let the hardware dictate the software. To become an architect, you must rewire this response. You must teach your body that the pain of a loss is not a physical threat. This requires a system override. This is why the routine, the laboratory work, is so rigid. We use the routine to numb the sensitivity to variance. If you wake up at the same time, eat the same food, breathe the same way, and follow the same checklist, you create a control group of one you. If you are consistent, then the only variable left and the market is something we can exploit. But if you are a variable, if you are tired, hungover, anxious, or reactive, then you cannot measure anything. You are just noise adding to the noise. You need to understand that your capital is not in your brokerage account. Your capital is in your neurotransmitters. Serotonin regulates your mood and prevents you from revenge trading. Dopamine drives your focus but must be tightly rationed. Acetylcholine helps you learn from your mistakes. If you burn these out by 10 a.m. chasing 1-minute candles, the biological boot sequence is about structural integrity. It is about building a vessel strong enough to hold the volatility of the market without cracking. So tomorrow morning, you do not check your phone. You calibrate the instrument. You treat yourself with the same seriousness that a fighter pilot treats their jet. Because once you strap into that chair, the G-force of the market will try to crush you. If your shell is thin, if your biology is weak, but we are not here to crumble. We are here to molt. We are here to shed the skin of the amateur and reveal something harder, colder, and more durable. The molting process is not pleasant. It involves denying your strongest impulses. You say you want to be profitable? You say you want the truth? The truth is that you have to kill the part of you that wants to have fun. You have to kill the part of you that needs to be right. Now that the hardware is rebooted, we must address the software. We must address the pain. Growth is a destructive act. We have been sold a sanitary version of success, a version where growth is a straight line, a cumulative gathering of skills and accolades. You read a book, you get smarter. You practice a sport, you get faster. You believe that if you simply add more knowledge to your existing pile, you will eventually reach a critical mass where profitability becomes inevitable. This is the accumulation fallacy, and in the market, it is fatal. You cannot add a professional trader's mindset on top of your existing personality. Your current personality, the one that seeks comfort, validation, and certainty, is incompatible with the probabilistic nature of. You cannot build a skyscraper on top of a swamp. You have to drain the swamp. You have to destroy the foundation. We call this the molting process. It is a soft, mushy animal living inside a hard, rigid shell. This shell, the exoskeleton, protects it from predators. It provides structure, but the shell does not grow. The animal inside grows, but the shell remains static. Eventually, the lobster grows too big for its housing. The shell becomes a prison. It becomes tight, restricting, and suffocating. The animal is under immense pressure. To survive, the lobster must do something incredibly. It must hide under a rock, split its shell open, and drag its soft, vulnerable body out into the freezing. For a period of time, it has no protection. If a predator finds it, it dies. If the current is too strong, it dies. But this is the only way to grow. It must shed the old identity to allow the new one to harden. Your shell is your ego. Your shell is constructed from your life experiences. It is made of your need to be right. It is made of your academic intelligence. It is made of your status as a smart person who solves problems. In the real world, the linear world, this shell serves you well. If you are an engineer, being right is good. If you are a surgeon, precision is mandatory. But the market is not a surgery. It is a war zone of incomplete information. When you enter a trade and it goes against you, your shell feels the pressure. This is not just financial loss. It is psychological compression. The market is telling you, you are wrong. Your shell screams, no. I checked the macro. The market is irrational. This is the crucial moment. This is the fork in the road where 99% of you choose death. To alleviate the pressure, you try to repair the shell. You use cognitive dissonance as glue. You find a news article that supports your bias. You widen your stop loss to give the trade room. You average down to improve your cost basis. You are patching a shell that needs to be abandoned. You are prioritizing your psychological comfort over your financial survival. You are choosing to be right rather than to be rich. And so, you die inside the shell. You blow the account. And then, tragically, you deposit more money and build the exact same shell again. The professional trader welcomes the pressure. When the trade moves against them, they do not argue. They do not patch the ego. Let's analyze the neurobiology of taking a loss, or it is a visceral event. The brain processes financial loss in the same region that processes physical pain and social rejection, the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex. When you click close order on a losing trade, you are voluntarily inflicting pain upon yourself. You are punching yourself in the gut. You are admitting publicly and privately, I was incompetent. Most humans will do anything to avoid this feeling. They will hold a losing trade all the way to zero just to avoid the momentary sting of realizing the loss. They prefer the dull, chronic ache of a floating loss to the sharp, acute pain of a realized loss. But the molting process demands that you seek this acute pain. You must learn to cut and bleed. The moment you realize your thesis is invalid, you must exit. No hesitation. No bargaining. You strip off the protection of your analysis, and you step into the cold water of realization. In that moment of vulnerability, something profound happens. The energy you were using to defend your ego is suddenly released. You are no longer fighting reality. You have successfully molted. Now, you are soft, but you are also free. And because you are free, you can grow. You can look at the chart without the distortion of your open position. You can see the market for what it actually is, not what you need it to be to save your pride. You have to do this again and again and again. Trading is a continuous cycle of molting. You are never finished. You never build a shell that is permanent. If you ever find yourself feeling completely safe, completely confident, and completely masterful, you are in immediate danger. Comfort is the sensation of the shell hardening. It is the sensation of stagnation. Let's go back to David. David is currently in a drawdown. He has lost 15% of his account this month. His shell is cracking. He avoids talking to his wife about his trading. He feels the weight of the imposter syndrome. Choice A. He can seek comfort. He can switch strategies. He can buy a new indicator. He can watch a YouTube video titled How to Make $10,000 a Month with Zero Risk. This is him trying to build a thicker shell. He is looking for armor that will prevent him from ever feeling this pain again. The arrows of the market pierce everything. Choice B. He can embrace the molt. He can look at his P&L and say, this result is a perfect reflection of my current skill level. I am losing because I am a loser. My behavior is flawed. My risk management is theoretical, not practical. This is brutal honesty. It dissolves the illusion of competence. But this is the only soil in which a trader can grow. You must develop a perverse relationship with discomfort. When a trade is hard, when it feels like jumping off a cliff, when your stomach turns, when every fiber of your survival instinct screams, that is often where the edge lies. The crowd seeks comfort. The crowd buys at the top because it feels safe to join the herd. The crowd sells at the bottom because the pain of holding is too great. To be the architect, you must do the opposite. You must buy the fear and sell the euphoria. You must walk into the fire while everyone else is running for the exits. This requires a callus of the mind. Just as a weightlifter tears muscle fibers to build mass, you must tear your emotional fibers to build psychological capital. Every time you take a disciplined loss, but when it heals, the new tissue is denser. It is more resistant to variance. Eventually, you reach a state where the pain of losing is no longer emotional. It is merely informational. A loss is not an indictment of your soul. It is a cost of doing business. It is the rent you pay for the privilege of operating in the market. Right now, you are still soft. You are still trying to protect a shell that is destined to shatter. Let the market humiliate you. Let the arrogant, know-it-all version of you die on the floor of the exchange. Only when that version of you is dead can the architect begin to work. We have stripped the hardware. We have broken the ego. Now we are left with the raw components. Now we must rebuild. But we do not rebuild with excitement. We do not rebuild with passion. We rebuild with the most powerful force in the universe, mathematics. And mathematics, my friends, is incredibly painfully boring. If you are having fun, you are losing money. Write that to it on the inside of your eyelids. There is a pervasive myth in this industry that the big short, the life-changing trade, the geometric compounding event, is the goal. You watch movies where traders are screaming at screens, smashing phones, and popping. Equate volatility with vitality? You think that to make millions, you must feel a million emotions. This is the Hollywood premium, and you are paying it with your equity. Real alpha is silent. Real alpha is invisible. Real alpha is so incredibly dull that if you filmed a professional trader for 8 hours, the audience would fall asleep in 10 minutes. Welcome to the mathematics of boredom. We have stripped your ego. We have rebooted your biology. Now we must install the operating system of the house. You treat the market like a slot machine. You pull the lever and hope for cherries. But the architect does not play the machine. The architect owns the machine. And the owner of the casino does not care about the outcome of a single pull. He does not cheer when the patron loses. He does not cry when the patron wins a jackpot. He simply ensures that the machine is plugged in, the lights are on, and the mathematical edge, the house edge, remains statistically rigid over a sample size of 1 million spins. Your problem is that you are addicted to the variance spike. You want the trade that doubles your account. You want the screenshot you can post on social media. But mathematically, a trade that doubles your account is a failure of risk management. It means you exposed yourself to a level of ruin that is statistically unsustainable. You survived a game of Russian roulette and called it skill. The math of ruin is unforgiving. If you lose 50% of your capital, you need a 100% return just to break even. You have dug a hole that requires twice the effort to fill. The architect avoids the hole. The architect is obsessed with asymmetric compounding via minimal variance. Let's look at the factory floor. Imagine your trading desk is not a cockpit, but a factory assembly line. Your job is not to be a hero. Your job is to pull a lever. Every time you pull the lever correctly, meaning you executed your system perfectly, you get paid a process wage. Sometimes the machine spits out money, a winning trade. Sometimes it consumes money, a losing trade. But the architect knows that over 1,000 pulls, the machine yields a net profit of 1.5 units is positive expectancy. Now here is where your psychology fails. You pull the lever 3 times. The machine takes your money 3 times in a row. L. The amateur panics. The machine is broken. The market is changed. The algo is hunting me. The amateur tries to fix the machine. He changes his leverage. He tries to predict the next spin. The architect yawns. He sees that in a data set of 1,000 pulls, a string of 3 losses has a probability of 12.5%. It is just distribution clumping. He pulls the lever again. This is the superpower of boredom. When you are bored, you are detached. When you are detached, your cognitive battery is preserved. You are not burning glucose trying to predict the future. You are simply executing the if/then logic of your system. If price hits support and volume diverges, then execute long. L is binary code. It is incredibly profitable. Let's talk about the grind. You despise the grind. You want the parabolic move. You want to buy the bottom tick of a crypto coin and sell the top. You are chasing the tail events. But the math of wealth generation is found in the fat middle. It is found in the hundreds of small, boring base hits that compound over time. Albert Einstein called compound interest the 8th wonder of the world. But compounding requires continuity. It requires you to stay in the game. If you blow up trying to hit a home run, you interrupt the compounding curve. You reset the clock to 0. The architect aims for a boredom index of 100%. If his heart rate spikes above 90 BPM, he closes the position. Physiological spike indicates that the position size is too large for his psychological. He has violated the sleep point, the level of risk at which he can sleep soundly without. You cannot sleep. You are over-leveraged. Period. To grow my small account fast. You argue, I can't afford to be boring. That is exactly why you will stay poor. You are using the desperation of your current circumstance to justify the destruction of your future circumstance. You are trying to sprint through a minefield because you are late for dinner. You will not make it to dinner. The mathematics of boredom dictates that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Let's return to the visual of the laboratory. There are no flashing lights here. There is no CNBC blaring in the background. There is silence. The architect is looking at a chart. It is a weekly chart. He sees a setup forming. It might take 3 days to trigger. He reads a book. He does not watch the candles form. Watching a candle form is the most destructive use of human attention imaginable. It creates the recency bias. You begin to hallucinate patterns in the noise of the seconds. You imbue a random tick of price with meaning. Oh, it's rejecting. It isn't rejecting. Its architect trusts the math. He knows that his edge plays out over a series of 100 trades. He does not judge himself on the outcome of today. If you ask an amateur, how did you do today? They will tell you a dollar amount. I made $500. If you ask an architect, how did you do today? They will tell you a metric of execution. I followed my plan 100%. I had 0 slippage. I took 1 valid loss. The amateur judges the outcome. The architect judges the process. If you execute a terrible trade based on a gut feeling and make $1,000, the architect views this as a tragedy. You have been rewarded for bad behavior. You have just taught your brain to ignore the math. You have planted a seed of destruction that will bloom the next time you increase your. Conversely, if you execute a perfect trade based on your system and lose $1,000, the architect views this as a victory. You paid the premium for information. You paid the toll to the probability gods. You maintained the integrity of the laboratory. You must fall in love with the plateau. Most of trading is a plateau. It is watching your account go sideways. Sidger gets bored on the plateau. He falls off the cliff. The architect waits on the plateau. He polishes his tools. He waits for the market to come to him. And when the market finally moves, when the volatility expands and the opportunity presents itself, the architect is ready. His cognitive battery is full. He steps in and executes with the cold, dead eyes of a shark. He does not post it on Instagram. He simply adds the result to his spreadsheet, updates the rolling average, and turns off. Is strictly business. And that brings us to the final evolution, the moment where you stop being a person who trades and become the system itself. The moment you lose your identity to find your edge. We have arrived at the end, but in the markets, there are no endings. There you have survived the energy tax, initiated the biological boot sequence, endured the molting process, and accepted the mathematics of boredom. You are no longer a trader. Trader is a dirty word. It implies a transaction of effort. It is a man in a bazaar shouting prices, sweating, haggling, desperate to exchange goods. You are now an architect. An architect does not shout. An architect designs a structure, ensures the load-bearing walls are sound, pours the concrete, and then stands back. If the wind blows, the architect does not panic. He knows the building is rated for wind shear. If an earthquake hits, he does not try to hold the building up with his hands. He relies on the seismic dampeners he installed months ago. This is the final architecture. It is the permanent shift in identity from a participant in the market to an observer of who are currently discretionary traders. This is a polite way of saying you are emotional gamblers. You look at the screen, you feel a feeling, and you click a button. You claim you are using intuition. Let's have anxiety disguised as insight. True intuition is simply subconscious pattern recognition built over 10,000 hours of exposure. Until you have logged those hours, your gut feeling is just indigestion. It is the primitive brain trying to escape uncertainty. The architect builds a wall between his feelings and his fingers. This wall is the system. The system is not a strategy. A strategy is buy at the moving average. The system is a comprehensive governance protocol for your life. It dictates when you sleep, what you eat, how much you risk when you walk away, and, most importantly, how you process failure. In the final architecture, you become the algo. You might not know how to code in Python or C++, but you must code your mind. You must write the if/then logic so deeply into your neural pathways that hesitation becomes impossible. When the setup appears, you do not think, you execute. When the stop loss is hit, you do not hope. You are a biological algorithm. You are a meat-based execution engine. The market provides the input, price and volume, and you provide the output, buy or sell. There is no you in the middle to interpret, to judge, or to fear. The you that used to lose money, the fragile, ego-driven shell, has been evicted from the building. This brings us to the ultimate realization, the title of this journey. The day I stopped trying to be right. For years, I thought my job was to predict the future. I thought I was paid to know what the S&P 500 would do next week. I spent thousands of hours studying macroeconomics, interest rates, and geopolitical supply chains. I wanted to be the smartest guy in the room. I wanted to be the oracle. And the market crushed me. It took my money and gave it to people far less intelligent than me, but far more disciplined. The epiphany came in the silence of a blown account. I realized that the market does not care what I know. The market does not care about my logic. The market is a mechanism of liquidity seeking fair value. It cannot tell the river where to go. You can only build a water wheel. If you build the wheel correctly and place it in the current, it spins. If the river changes direction, you do not scream at the river. The moment I gave up the need to be right, I became dangerous. I stopped trying to call tops and bottoms. I stopped trying to catch falling knives to prove my genius. I started waiting for the fat, obvious, boring pitches that the market threw at me. I accepted that I am blind. I accepted that I have no idea what will happen in the next 5 minutes. And paradoxically, by accepting my blindness, I learned to see. I saw that I don't need to know the future to make money. I only need to know the probability. If I have a coin that lands on heads 60% of the time, I don't need to know if the next flip is heads. I just need to bet on heads every single time, for eternity. If the next flip is tails, I am not wrong. I am just on the wrong side of variance. I lose the bet, but I win the math. This is the state of structural integrity. You walk into the laboratory. You run the script. You take the next trade. You are a ghost in the machine. And this, my friends, is what true freedom looks like. They sell you a version of freedom that looks like a beach in Bali. They show you laptops and cocktails. That is just a vacation. True freedom is psychological sovereignty. It is the freedom from the tyranny of your own emotions. It is the freedom from the desperate need for external validation. It is the ability to look at a chaotic, burning world and remain completely, terrifyingly still. The market is the ultimate mirror. If you look into it and see fear, greed, and confusion, it is because you are fearful, greedy, and confused. But if you do the work, if you pay the taxes, if you strip the ego, if you embrace the boredom, you will look into the mirror and see nothing but potential. You will see a game that can be won, not by fighting the board, but by mastering the noise is silenced. The bell is about to ring.